What a monstrous bastard, Sergeant Lee thought to himself, completely shocked by Jun's prowess. The first day of training begins with recruits Nam, Hayek, and the rest clearly struggling. They are running up the stairs, and Hayek's internal thoughts are scattered due to fatigue. He realizes that training wouldn't be ordinary, even before enlisting in the Hunter Corps. Trying his hardest to maintain his strength while climbing the infamous 6,000 steps, he knows he must train intensely for 4 weeks before participating in actual battles. From the very first training session, they weigh themselves down with sandbags and climb the notorious steps. Hayek, obviously not having a great time, refers to the instructor who keeps checking their finishing times. This instructor is none other than Sergeant Lee Sumo, known as the Devil Instructor. Despite enduring the harsh training, Hayek realizes that it only increases their stats slightly before being thrust into battle. Meanwhile, Jun is having the time of his life during the training, effortlessly progressing. He feels light on his feet and loves the simplicity compared to his experiences in dungeon dwelling. Wearing the military uniform of the Hunter Corps suits him perfectly, and he relishes the food served in the mass hall. The recruits follow a strict routine, waking up at 6 a.m., having breakfast at 8:30 a.m., and training until lunch. Afternoon training continues until dinner, but the most cherished aspect for Jun is the free time at night. Inside the facility, there's a PC room where they can indulge in gaming or any other activities during their free time. It's like living his dream, getting paid, being well fed, and having time to exercise and play games. As Jun rushes up the stairs with great excitement, the others stare at him, perplexed by his speed and energy. At the top of the 6,000 steps, Sergeant Lee stands, hearing the rapid footsteps and seeing Jun approaching. Kim and Jun, who is this guy? It usually takes an average recruit at least 1 hour to climb the steps. How has he done it so quickly? Sergeant Lee wonders silently. However, Jun seems disappointed and questions the sergeant about an outing pass mentioned earlier. When he confirms that they would receive an outing pass if they finish in less than 30 minutes, Jun receives his pass without further response from the sergeant. Contemplating where to use the pass, Jun becomes the first recruit ever to achieve such a feat, finishing in a record-breaking 21 minutes, 1 second, and 43 milliseconds. High stats and strength alone aren't everything in the Hunter Corps. The most crucial aspect is the ability to react to monsters. Sergeant Lee begins to see the potential in Jun and decides to pay close attention to him from then on. In the common room, the recruits have existential crises, worrying about the continuation of strict training regimens. Hayek, excited by his improved stats, congratulates Jun, causing excitement among the other recruits. They all start checking their stats through the status window, while Jun wonders why they're getting so excited over a single stat point. He recalls his training days in Iskard, where his stats would increase by 10 each day through intense physical beatings. Other recruits engage in conversation, asking Jun about his outing pass and expressing admiration for his effortless climb up the stairs. Feeling valued and accepted by others, something he had never experienced in Iskard, Jun appreciates the communication and enjoys the camaraderie. Hearing about the PC room being open, Jun bursts with energy and rushes towards it, eager to indulge in gaming. With 2 other recruits, he spends time in the PC room, feeling more satisfied than ever before. Looking at the time, 9 p.m., Jun realizes that he'll get at least 2 hours of sleep after gaming, a luxury compared to his maximum 1 hour of sleep in Iskard. As Jun immerses himself in the game, the other recruits in the room stare at him, wondering why he's still playing that particular game. While the training continues, Sergeant Lee focuses on training the soldiers to run consistently at a maintained speed. The recruits appear exhausted, but they persevere. Sergeant Lee threatens that those unable to complete 40 kilometers in 2 hours will not receive breakfast. Meanwhile, Jun showcases his abilities, sharing that he achieved 10 max levels the day before and feeling no fatigue after the run. When asked about his lack of sweat, Jun casually explains that it was merely a stroll for him. A recruit questions if he spent every night playing games except for the 2 hours of sleep, considering him a monster. Jun jokingly spills water, causing the recruits to gather around like baby birds being fed in a nest. The recruit's lack of enthusiasm disappoints Sergeant Lee, who screams for attention. He expresses his disappointment in their frailty, stating that half of them won't survive a month after deployment. With a grim expression, he announces the final stage of training, known as the dungeon adjustment. Explaining the concept of transforming dungeons, he describes how they become a great training facility where recruits face various environments. The dungeon adjustment is notorious for its extreme difficulty, and the recruits are scared. However, the lieutenant prefers maintaining tension, handling recruits like racehorses, disciplining them when necessary and rewarding them appropriately. The lieutenant announces that the recruit with the highest score from this training will receive a 2-night, 3-day vacation pass. To his surprise, the recruits' reactions are dull, except for our protagonists, who couldn't be happier about the vacation opportunity. Finally, the time comes for the dreaded dungeon training to begin. The recruits are astonished by the colossal dungeon gate before them. Suddenly, an army truck nearly runs them over, stopping abruptly and stirring up dirt. The recruits then witness a group of creatures with luminous eyes confined in cages. The eyes behind the bars of the cage glared with growls that sent shivers down the recruits' spines. As their eyes adjusted to the darkness, they saw beasts with large fangs and furry skin. The cage was filled with hounds, but these were not your regular hounds. They were a bloodthirsty and absolutely terrifying breed. 2 recruits quickly sought refuge behind Kim and Jun, while another fell to the ground in fear. However, Minjun found them amusing and saw them as equivalent to tiny puppies, devoid of any fear. The lieutenant screamed at the recruits, questioning their fear of the hounds. He informed them that these monsters would be the adversaries they would face in the transforming dungeon during their training. This further heightened the recruits' terror. The lieutenant instructed them to form teams of 4 before entering the transforming dungeon. Their goal was to defeat at least one monster and safely make their way back out to prove their worth as valuable future soldiers to the Hunter Corps. After a brief pep talk, the lieutenant directed them to gear up, indicating they would receive special armor for the mission. Each recruit was asked to proceed one by one and pick up their Hunter Corps exclusive safety suit, also known as the Mid-2. The suit resembled a shining piece of silver armor with a tough and heavy exterior, akin to a steel chassis. However, its sole purpose was to protect its wearer. While roughly made and rigid, it was also incredibly heavy. Some recruits expressed skepticism, wondering if the Hunter Corps could have provided them with something stronger. Minjun shared their sentiment, finding the armor unpleasant due to its repeated use by previous soldiers. As the armor had cost around 50 million Korean currency to make, he requested permission from the lieutenant to remove it quickly upon defeating the hounds. The lieutenant, a stern figure, dismissed the recruit's arrogance without realizing who had asked the question. Upon recognizing it was Minjun, he reluctantly granted him permission. The lieutenant reminded Minjun of the team training nature of the transformative dungeon, emphasizing the need to prioritize the safety and success of the entire team. Minjun, aware of the other recruits' lack of competence, devised a plan to teach his teammates how to defeat the hounds. He explained that when the hounds leaped to attack, they should grab their legs and snap their backs. If that didn't prove fatal, they should fold their backs in the opposite direction and rip them apart. Minjun's face radiated excitement as he shared the gruesome details of his plan, but his fellow recruits appeared unamused and tired of his cockiness. Ignoring their expressions, the lieutenant commanded the release of the hounds from the cage, and they immediately bounded out, growling and drooling with ferocity. Their sparkling white eyes had a blinding effect on anyone who looked into them. Astonishingly, the hounds bypassed the recruits and made a beeline for the dungeon, leaving the recruits bewildered. Minjun clarified that the hounds recognized their home and instinctively gravitated towards it, having been captured for a while. Understanding this, the recruits pondered how Minjun possessed such deep insight into the psychology of the monsters. However, Minjun yearned to share his experiences in Isgard and reveal that he used to be a dark mage. Yet, he understood he couldn't divulge this information at the moment. The lieutenant reprimanded the recruits for laughing and joking during the holy training rounds, prompting them to brush off the conversation. However, the lieutenant decided that Minjun's team would be the first to enter the dungeon. With a wave of his red lightsaber-like signaling device, the sergeant instructed the team to enter the dungeon. The 4 boys commenced their walk toward the depths of the dungeon. One among them wore a determined expression, while the other 2 seemed deeply worried about the future. Minjun, on the other hand, was simply thrilled to finally get things started and couldn't wait to remove the heavy and dirty chest plate that burdened him. The only commonality among the 4 was their prominent ears. The lieutenant picked up his radio and contacted the instructor team waiting inside the transformative dungeon in case of any unforeseen danger. The observer responded, confirming the team's entry, while spectating alongside a corporal from a concealed spot within the crystallized walls. Among the instructors on protection duty, the devil instructor, whom all the recruits despised, was surprised by Minjun's presence, wondering about his prowess. Minjun had consistently scored well during training and demonstrated commendable performance over the 4 weeks. The question on the instructor's mind was whether Minjun would continue to excel in the dungeon. As Kim, Minjun, and their team ventured deeper into the dungeon, the bloodthirsty hound eyes watched from the crevices in the walls, patiently waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Minjun, seemingly aware of their presence, contemplated how to dispatch them effortlessly with a flick on their foreheads. However, he realized he couldn't complete the exercise alone, as it was a team effort. His teammates needed to contribute to earn stat points. Minjun warned his team that the hounds were about to attack, but their surprise overwhelmed their ability to react, and they began screaming in fear. Taking the lead, Minjun stepped forward as one of the hounds rushed toward him. He swiftly dodged to the side and landed a punch on the hound's head, instantly killing the creature. Meanwhile, another recruit was pounced on and bitten by a hound, locking eyes with Minjun as he screamed for help. Minjun rushed to his aid, kicking the hound away, causing it to collide with a wall and meet its demise. Minjun assisted the wounded recruit and realized the situation was more dire than he initially thought. Assuming the role of a battle instructor, Minjun explained that they must fight back to avoid being overwhelmed by the hounds. He emphasized that the hounds would perceive their fear and consider them easy prey if they didn't retaliate. With their numerical advantage, the recruits could overpower the hounds. Shouting instructions, Minjun directed his fellow recruits to put pressure on the remaining hound, and together, they attacked with Minjun guiding their actions. Hidden instructors within the dungeon's crevices were shocked to witness this display, observing Minjun's attitude and exceptional leadership skills, leaving them wide-eyed and baffled. The recruits overwhelmed the hound, bringing it down. The instructors began to formulate conspiracy theories, wondering if Minjun was a secret instructor deployed without their knowledge. They analyzed the team's scores, with Minjun inevitably scoring the highest due to his physical strength and leadership abilities. While the rest of Minjun's squad would likely receive average scores, the squad celebrated and breathed a sigh of relief, knowing they had conquered their most daunting challenge thus far. The instructors emerged from their hiding spots, commending the recruits on their performance and instructing them to follow back to the exit. Curiosity piqued, Minjun questioned the presence of the instructors and teased them about his expectations of receiving a vacation pass or a high score. He playfully remarked on their apparent concern for the recruits while maintaining a tough exterior. The light-hearted banter continued as they made their way toward the gate. Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to shake violently, causing alarm among the recruits, who feared it might be an earthquake. Minjun reassured them, explaining that the transforming dungeon was undergoing its transformation process and that there was nothing to worry about. However, the instructors started to panic, and the recruits were astounded as they witnessed the dungeon's entrance door shrinking before their eyes. The recruits also begin to panic as the dungeon door closes. The instructors try to contact the lieutenant through their radio, but it seems the radio is dead due to the dungeon transforming too fast. They had over a month before the internal structure of the dungeon would change, but this unexpected occurrence significantly altered the situation. The instructors decide not to dwell on the current issue and lead the recruits to a safe space to wait it out. They explain the situation to the new recruits, who are terrified and on the verge of panic. The instructors assure them that they will wait for an hour to see if the door opens, as stated in their manual. They comfort the recruits, who breathe a sigh of relief upon hearing that the Hunter Corps is likely assessing the situation from the outside and that the lieutenant will take the necessary steps to ensure their safety. However, Minjun suspects that the instructors are trying to keep the recruits calm because they wouldn't have conducted training exercises here if they had known about unexpected situations like this. He understands that this is an extraordinary occurrence, and an enclosed dungeon with a closed exit is an ominous sign. Minjun ponders if the dungeon has transformed into an enclosed dungeon, which would make defeating the monsters within more challenging. Meanwhile, the instructors attempt to discuss their situation privately. In a secluded area, one instructor informs the other that the dungeon has indeed transformed into an enclosed dungeon. The revelation surprises the other instructor, who, despite being part of the renowned Hunter Corps, was unaware of this fact. The instructor proceeds to explain the workings of an enclosed dungeon, where it only occurs when an outsider enters, triggering the transformation. The only way to escape the enclosed dungeon is by defeating every single monster inside. Now, our heroes face several challenges, battling through a maze-like dungeon filled with monsters, with no external assistance available. The instructors inform the recruits about the situation, which increases their tension. With only 4 recruits and 2 instructors, they must navigate the dungeon independently, unaware of which monsters they will encounter. Unfortunately, the instructors are ill-equipped to handle an enclosed dungeon, but they must make do with their limited resources and continue moving forward. The head instructor realizes that even encountering a goblin would pose a significant threat, as it would take at least 10 minutes for him to defeat one. He contemplates utilizing the protective suits worn by the recruits as a defense, positioning them at the front while the recruits attempt to defeat the monsters. However, he wrestles with a sense of responsibility towards the recruits, considering the rigorous training they have undergone and the trust they have placed in him. Putting them in harm's way feels unfair. He dismisses the plan, unwilling to compromise their safety. Despite their fear, the recruits muster their courage and follow their instructors. However, Minjun senses something amiss and observes one of the instructors closely. The head instructor notices Minjun's concern and inquires about the situation. Suddenly, everyone's attention turns to the other instructor, who struggles to breathe and clutches his throat. He collapses to the floor, foam frothing from his mouth. Alarmed, the head instructor rushes to his aid but succumbs to the same symptoms, falling unconscious. Foam continues to emanate from their mouths. Kim Minjun rushes to check on the instructors and reassures the recruits that it's not a severe condition, they have merely fainted. Recognizing a familiar scent, he swiftly picks up the instructors and instructs the recruits to catch them. He entrusts the care of the instructors to his comrades, cautioning them not to follow him. He orders the recruits to remain near the exit, refraining from venturing elsewhere. Despite their protests, Minjun proceeds deeper into the dungeon, his anticipation growing. In his internal monologue, Minjun explains the reason behind the instructors' collapse: they were exposed to demonic energy. Unexpectedly finding such energy on Earth excites him, as it serves as a power source for dark mages like himself. As he ventures further into the dungeon, he detects the source of the dense demonic energy, heightening his enthusiasm. However, as he reaches the closest possible proximity, he discovers an empty void, devoid of any sights or sounds. Only the glow of purple crystals illuminates the enclosed dungeon. Perplexed, he searches for signs of monsters but finds none. Yet, the scent of the demonic energy leads him upward, and there, he spots a formidable opponent, a massive alpha hound radiating intense purple demonic energy. With its 4 gleaming purple eyes and menacing teeth and claws, it presents a worthy challenge that Minjun has longed for. Remembering his encounter with a dark hound during his early days in Iskard, Minjun recognizes the creature before him. Back then, he faced the terrifying beast while underprepared, nearly meeting his demise. But now, he is a seasoned dark mage and hunter, ready to confront the dark hound head-on with unwavering confidence. The creature lunges at him from the ceiling, but Minjun retaliates with a powerful punch, reminiscent of his training. The impact sends the dark hound hurtling through the air, as Minjun thanks it for the meal. The monster meets its demise. However, he soon realizes that the scent of blood was still sickening. Demonic energy was being released into the air. Minjun focuses his hand and talks about the immense amount of demonic energy that spills out after the monster's death, which made dark hounds hard to defeat. And because of its venomous blood, when normal humans came into contact with it, their skin would begin to rot. The demonic energy in the air started to gather and surge towards Minjun. His hand was seen slowly absorbing the demonic energy into his body. But Minjun smiles while absorbing the demonic energy, as all the problems that normal humans had with the dark hounds did not apply to dark mages. Thanks for watching the latest part from the voice of Manhwa. Subscribe for more content and don't forget to comment below what you want to see in the future. Like and share for more Manhwa recaps in the